this specific Zoom. I have Lynn McDonald on here, and we're going to talk about some things related to matured hop extract pHix, what it does, biologically. And, we have a lot of doctors, functional medical doctors, naturopaths, pharmacists that all have just great comments on why they're so excited about this particular extract. And a few days ago, Lynn had left a voice message into a team. And somebody had asked some questions about why pHix, and I'm not even sure how the question came, but I heard her response and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing stuff. And it might be things that other people have heard, but with the way you, Lynn, had put it together, I just thought I wanted to get on a Zoom and have this conversation so that hopefully the masses could get this and listen to it, because you have a unique background in medicine. And the way you described it, at least to me, was very it was exciting, I guess is the best word for it. So thank you so much for being on here for a few minutes. How's everything?
It's all good. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be able to talk about this with you. I love that we've got this to share, so I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Amen. Amen. And you live where?
In the north of Scotland, in a small town next to a beach near Inverness, which is near Loch Ness, where the Loch Ness monster lives, apparently. So, yeah.
Serious. Okay. So you guys don't go hang out on the beach and sunbathe there, I assume, in northern Scotland.
In the summer, yes.
Oh, really? You can? Okay.
Very nice walks in the winter if we're feeling like we want to brave the elements. But yeah, it's more of a summer activity. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Oh, nice. Okay. So if we could start here, Lynn, could you share with them your the degrees you were talking about, your medical background? Could you just give people your history, please?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I went to Glasgow Medical School back in 1990 and obviously wanted to become a doctor to help people with their health. So, but I took a little bit longer than most doctors do to get my degree because I actually failed pharmacology of all things in my third year, which wasn't my finest hour at that time. But however, I can understand why I did that now that I've left the profession. But
Mm.
I graduated in 99 after a very convoluted taking time out, having a baby, going back in, and did lots of hospital jobs. I did pediatrics, psychiatry, hematology, oncology, ENT, dermatology, ophthalmology, um, probably more, too many to list at the moment. But I did lots of jobs in the hospitals, and then I became a GP, general practitioner or family doctor in that town I just mentioned in Inverness in the north of Scotland. So I was a partner in general practice for from 2005 until 2012 it was. Prior to that, obviously, hospital jobs. And I also trained up in homeopathy while I was a medical doctor through the Glasgow Homeopathic Hospital. So I had an interest in things sort of alongside medicine at the same time. And 2012 was when I left the profession in good standing with the GMC, which is the governing body in the UK. But through my own burnout and stress at the time, I had a divorce going on, lots of different things in the background, and the pressure for me as a single mum of four at the time, now five,
Wow. Wow.
it was a lot. I had to employ a nanny while I went to work and work as a GP, and said nanny was busy showing me photos from the beach. Here's the children and I having a lovely time. And I would be like, oh, I wish I was there too. So
Yeah.
so there was a lot going on and it didn't align anymore. That's really why I left. And I had nothing to go to. Trained up in hypnotherapy after that. Didn't get a practice going. Really didn't. I kind of lost my confidence a bit. Had another baby. And then the person who was in hospital having babies next to me at the same time, she started a year later after that talking about network marketing and how she was doing something new. And I was like, oh, what's she doing? that's how I got into what we're doing now. And this has led to me finally finding my way to pHix and being here on this lovely Zoom with the amazing Tere. So it's great to have
Awesome.
eventually, strange path, but I've got here eventually.
Yeah, yeah. So you saw pHix, you understood, I'm assuming biologically, what a matured hop extract does. And I know that you had articulated very well what's going on in the body. I try to keep it high level when I'm explaining it to people. Now, I'm not a doctor, of course, but I've listened to and I hear a lot of what happens. So from your perspective, Lynn, what was it that when you saw this, what got you excited initially about the product itself?
Okay, so I'm always on the lookout for things that I've never heard of that might help humans with their health because I know there's a lot of things out there.
Mhm.
And so I'm very open to hearing about things. And I've heard about things before that I've loved. And when my friend contacted me to say, "Hey, Lynn, would you like to take a look at something?" I'm like, I always want to take a look at something. She showed me this. I think what struck me most was I know that a lot of people are attracted to this product because of the fat loss element to it, but I think there's way more going on than it just being like a product for people who are overweight and need to lose fat. Um, I myself am not exactly in the bracket of needing something from that point of view. And when I looked at what it was, I thought, well, that's great if it's doing that, but how is it doing that?
Right.
And I learned a lot along the way about truly how to help humans with their health in terms of fat, partly because I have had weight issues myself, going up and down like a yo-yo all my life from childhood. So I get it, I hear it, I understand the difficulties of anorexia and obesity and bulimia and all of the things. It was one of my hardest battles as a GP to actually help people with their weight because no matter what we would tell them about calories in and calories out and exercise and all of these things, it never worked. And it never worked because it doesn't work. So when I looked at this product and it worked with our metabolism to help us digest things better, help our hormones work better, help our neuropeptides to do what they're meant to do better, help mobilize the fat stores, help get us down from a state of sympathetic standard that we all seem to be in, not sympathetic overdrive, but spending too much time in the sympathetic state. And the product seems to flip us into parasympathetic status, which is it's like the seesaw of the autonomic nervous system. So you can either be well into sympathetic or well into parasympathetic, but you can't really be in both at the same time. It's like flipping the switch from one to the other. And I understood quite quickly that that's what this product was doing. I was sent some research. I looked at the papers. I was like, oh, this is really, really interesting. Really
So
interesting.
before we go too far, can you
Yeah.
explain in layman's terms sympathetic and parasympathetic? What would
Yeah.
that look like in a person?
Yeah. So sympathetic is like you might hear it described as stressed out or fight or flight mode,
Yep.
even fight, flight, freeze, and fawn mode because they're important too. People can just be stuck. They can just be like they've been through so much trauma, PTSD, traumatized state that they're actually now not able to function very well at all.
Gotcha. Okay.
All of that is part of sympathetic being, we're stressed about our mortgage, we're stressed about how we're going to keep a roof over our head, on a day-to-day basis, how we're going to make ends meet,
Right.
the next social media or televised horrible event going on out there. It's all bombarding us all the time with things to be stressed about family members, stressed about our job, stressed about everything.
Yeah. And
We
does that kick out cortisol? Is that part of what happens then when you're in that? Okay. All
So
right.
it raises our cortisol level, okay, and appropriately if if we were in a state of the threat is that we need to run away from a lion, we need to run for our life, or we need to stand and fight and defend ourselves against an attack or something, it's appropriate to go into fight and flight mode.
Right.
But it's not helpful to be in that state all the time like we are just for modern day living.
Yep.
We actually need to get a good night's sleep. We need to digest our food properly. We need to be relaxed and be calm and not have a raised cortisol all the time. It's good to get us out of bed in the morning, but we want it to come down during the day, and we want to be relaxed and going about our day with, you know, better brain function and all the things that come when we're more in the parasympathetic status, which is the rest and digest mode. That is important for bodily repair. And cortisol's being too high actually robs us of the ability to have enough mother hormone, the pregnenolone, which comes from our mitochondria, to create other hormones, for example, like testosterone, like estrogen, like progestogen, like human growth hormone. And we need human growth hormone in children for growing and repair, and for adults for repair. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why when I was looking at this product, I was like, that looks like a really, really smart, genius, actually, mode of action for anything to work on someone's body to help them actually repair themselves in the most intelligent way that the body knows how, fixing the most important things first and foremost. The most life-threatening things would get fixed first, and help on so many levels in different types of conditions.
Yeah, the term I use, and this is just as I hear all the different medical folks talk about it, to me, what pHix is doing, it leads the body into homeostasis. And it's trying to get the body back to an optimal operating method, if you will. And
Absolutely.
so in that,
the human body wants balance. It wants homeostasis. For people don't know, that's a fancy word for balance.
yeah.
We want some oxidants. We don't want too many. We want, we want a balance. We want the right number of hormones. We don't want too much cortisol, but we don't want none. We want to get things in the right, like there's a Swedish word lagom, which means not too much and not too little. We want lagom happening. So
Awesome. So in pHix, when pHix enters the body, can you explain why it would help the body move to parasympathetic in like biologically?
Yes. We have T2R receptors, which are one type of taste receptor on our tongue, in our lungs, in our nasal cavity, sinuses, in our stomach, small intestine and bowel, and large bowel, sorry. So we have taste receptors in all of these different places, and it's part of the body's kind of like alert system, okay? The T2R receptors are the ones which detect the bitter taste in particular. And whenever a human ingests something bitter, or apparently when we breathe in a virus, it triggers these bitter receptors in our lungs, right? And the body goes into, okay, we need to deal with this mode.
Right.
But when we have a bitter trigger, the body thinks that is poison. Okay, that's our alert to, oh, we shouldn't be eating that because it's poisonous, right?
Yep.
So by the time it's come into us and it's come down into our stomach and into a small and large intestine and beyond, the body's like, oh my goodness. So what happens is this hops extract, it is concentrated, and we drink it. We have to put it in a drink so that it doesn't just sit in our mouth. It goes right down beyond our stomach, okay? And it tastes of nothing. It doesn't taste bitter, but it still triggers the bitter taste receptors, which are attached to minute branches of the vagal nerve, which is the cranial nerve, number 10. People can look that up. The vagal nerve, it's named because it's it was named because it's a wandering nerve. It connects to so many different vital organs in the body,
Yep.
part of the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system. So when the vagal nerve is stimulated down, connected to these taste receptors, sends a signal to the brain going, we're being poisoned, when we're not being poisoned, which is really important because we don't have all of the parts of that plant, or we don't have any harmful parts of that plant coming into us. It's just triggering the nerve endings. So then the brain goes, oh my goodness, we need to mount a rest and digest response to this, which is really bizarre because when I say this to people, they're like, what do you mean? If we're being poisoned, surely it would put us into sympathetic drive. And I'm like, no, the body's too intelligent for that. If it was a lion in sight, or if we were being attacked, yes, we go into sympathetic, but this is an inner attack by a plant poison or something that we perceive as a plant poison. So the body then intelligently puts us into fixing mode, and that is really how it works. So it stimulates the vagal nerve then to send messages down to all the vital organs like the heart, the lungs, the liver, the kidneys, the pancreas, the stomach, the gallbladder, the bowels, to make digestion work better and properly for us, meaning that we get more nutrients out of our food, we assimilate everything better, we make the correct amount of hormones from what we have going, we stop breaking down tissues to go into fight and flight mode, and we start building up our tissues, which is lovely because things like weight loss can include muscle loss, and we don't want that. We want fat loss. We don't want to use muscle health and bulk. The last thing we want to do is to go into our older life with sarcopenia, which means lack of muscle. So we need to sensibly lose weight. We need to lose fat, and we need to lose it properly. And I think the question I had been asked that you listened to the voice message of was, Lynn, can you say simply, because it was actually my friend that asked me, can you give me a simple explanation of what the difference is between what we have and what a GLP-1 analog does?
That's right.
And the main difference is a GLP analog is one particular neuropeptide being mimicked that is normally in the stomach. And when that is boosted, when that is boosted on its own, yes, it's going to make us feel like we don't want to eat. But what is that? That's actually starving ourselves. That's actually cutting down our overall food intake, which ironically is not what we want to do when we're trying to lose fat. We actually want to make better use of what we're taking in, and we want to use up fat stores that we already have, which is another thing that our pHix does.
Right. That's the amazing part of it, right? Because the fat stores is just stored up energy, right?
Yeah.
And so as that gets released, the body has this energy to do something with. And as I understand it, it then goes to do what you're talking about. It goes to repair whatever's most urgently in need of repair in the body. And it uses that released energy to do that.
Yeah. And just having more energy makes our brain function better. Our brain uses something like 20% of our total energy throughout the day.
Wow.
And it's certainly not 20% of our whole body mass, is it? So, and so boosting, and I've seen a lot of testimonies about different cognitive problems people can have being helped by this. A lot. I've seen a lot. I actually have ADHD myself, and I can tell everybody here that this product has made such a difference to me personally.
Nice. Ability to focus more, is that what you're sensing?
Yeah. Ability to not procrastinate as much, to be more motivated, and in a appropriate, beneficial manner, rather than me hyper focusing on something which really doesn't have a point for me to hyper focus on it. I can hyper focus on pHix all day. I love that. I'm fixated. Uh, but at times I can be like one distraction after another and never getting anything productive done. I just feel like I'm a lot more productive now. And that's probably partly because this opportunity to share this is amazing. Like I couldn't even imagined I'd have been on a call like this a couple of months ago. It's amazing what this is doing. So yeah, I'm just keen for people to hear about it because the potential for helping people with their health is what I'm excited about the most with this. That's why
Yeah.
I like sharing it.
So as we kind of land the plane here, Lynn, as I listen, so when we first rolled pHix out, the trials that we were aware of, and this is real stuff. Some of you who are listening to this, if you weren't around back in May and early June when we first started rolling this out on Zooms, what we were talking about predominantly was that you could drop this in alcohol and not gain weight. That was our I guess our message. And that's because it comes from the trials that were done and the conversations we had with the original producer of it before we took it all over. So we moved away from that because we had people like yourself with your background going, could you guys not talk about alcohol quite as much? Because there's a lot more benefit to this than just that. And there was a whole reason for what it was doing in the body. It doesn't matter. But the point is, based on what I hear you saying, we've been talking about fat loss, which, that's what the trials showed. What we reference health benefit. We hear a lot of health benefit, but because there haven't been what I will call clinical trials done, even though we might be we're in the largest trial that there is. I mean, 37,000 people have joined and are utilizing pHix. That's a pretty darn good sample size. And we get a lot of people that talk about all these, what I'll call ancillary benefits. So even if I'm saying all that to ask this question, it sounds like the internal benefits, the health benefits that come from the response in the body, what you were talking about, the T2 receptors, the beta receptors, what that does and helps with the vagal nerve relax. I just use the term relaxing the vagal nerve. That may or may not be the way to describe it. That's my definition of it, only because it then starts to help all those other organs that you talked about operate the way they're supposed to. So if someone was on this and they want to utilize this for, okay, I want to get skinny. That's what, everybody wants to look better in the mirror naked. That's what they want. And, but would you say that people should be looking at the health benefits equally as much, more, less than the fat loss? Or how could you describe that? And if that's even an accurate question to ask?
I think I firmly believe that being overweight per se is a sign of being unwell. So it's actually part of the whole thing. It's actually, and I believe that we've been conditioned in society to believe that if we're overweight, as in too much fat, it's either our fault because we ate too many calories, or it's our fault because we didn't do enough exercise. And we now know that all of that is very controversial and it doesn't work for people. And it's actually way more complex. There's hormones, there's toxins, there's all there's the type of food you eat. There's all sorts of different things going on to contribute to being overweight. Inflammation is a big factor, right? And a lot of what we see when we're seeing our product work well for fat loss in particular is in the first week, a lot of people will report that they've lost a lot of weight, and actually that's a lot of inflammation going initially. So I would say everything's important when it comes to this. I actually, sometimes it's a little bit of a shame because a lot of people who are thin actually have a lot of visceral fat in around their organs as well. Pretty much most people have visceral fat that they do not know they have in around their abdominal organs, behind their muscle wall, in their abdomen, which is quite toxic. It is like a little bit like a place where the body sequesters toxins because it's better to put them there rather than have them in the organs, right? It's a
Mm.
safer option for the body.
Yeah.
When we're in an environment where we're bombarded by toxins, it's difficult for the body to get rid of them. This product helps us to reduce the visceral fat, and therefore we don't have that almost, it's like a seat of toxicity within us, exuding interleukin 6, CRP, and other things which cause inflammation elsewhere in the body. We're getting rid of that. So this is actually why a lot of people get thirstier when they start on the product as well, because we're actually detoxing a lot of toxins out that have been stored for a very long time. Um, by getting rid of some of these inflammation making substances, we're seeing
Mm.
testimonies, and obviously we can't say this is going to help for particular disease conditions, but I have seen testimonies where people's joint problems are getting better, skin problems are getting better. You can put a name to any of these things if you want to, but the known things about getting rid of visceral fat is it does reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease, which is a large part to do with heart attacks and strokes. It reduces your risk of cancer. It does do that. It reduces your risk of Alzheimer's, and it reduces your risk of type 2 diabetes. So we can extrapolate that it's a really good idea to get rid of your visceral fat that you didn't even know you had. And most of us have it unless we are an Olympic sprinter. These people tend not to have visceral fat, but we're not all Olympic sprinters. So um, there's other ways you can trigger vagal nerve activity, but what I like about this product is it lasts for like 9.5 hours when you do it. And we hear that, well, that's 9.5 hours of fat burning, but I'm like that, forget about the fat burning in particular. 9.5 hours of being in parasympathetic rest
Mm.
and digest
Wow.
mode. It's incredible. Do you know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
9.5 hours of like healing mode in the body. And we're seeing a lot of people get better sleep in particular, and that in itself, to get better sleep is a healing thing. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's the number one thing I hear anymore. I mean, we've got, tens of thousands of people that have joined on the team, and the number one thing I hear is better sleep. That's
Yeah,
even for me. I mean, I'm sleeping better than I have in a long, long, long time. And
yeah.
it's just like deep. And so it's great.
Deeper sleep and longer sleep, both of those things are improving in the vast majority, I would say, wouldn't you? I would say the vast majority. The other thing is by getting rid of visceral fat, there's a lot more talk about visceral fat at the moment. It's becoming more known about, and I do follow people that are very into talking about it. And there's a documentary coming out later in the year that I'm really looking forward to seeing by some clever friends that I know. But one of them is a guy who initially trained in immunology, and he is now a brain surgeon. But he taught me that we have natural killer T cells, which are part of our immune system, which tackle cancer cells as they arise in the body. That's what they're designed to do. That's what natural killer T cells are meant to do in the body. When we've got too much visceral fat, they tend to be held hostage in there,
Hmm.
which is I can't understand the
Interesting.
exact mechanism why that is. I'm sure I can get him to explain it to me again, but when we
So
release
in layman's terms, what you just said, because I'm lame, what you're saying is those killer T cells that are supposed to be out in the body looking for cancer and destroying that get tied up in the visceral fat and not released necessarily to go find the.
So there's evidence that when we lose the visceral fat, those become free to do the job they're designed to do in the rest of the body. Because when you use the word homeostasis all the time, we have cancer cells arise and our body fights them
Yep.
all the time. And it's
Yep.
when it swings too much one way that we tend to get into trouble.
Interesting.
That's that's very interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
I'd love to talk about the fat burning mechanism as well, because I think that's quite genius too, if we've got time.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I was reading the research papers that I'd been sent by the person who told me about this, who I love her to bits for telling me, by the way, I am eternally grateful to her. Um, so she knows who she is. Um, I was reading the research, and it works in a slightly different way. It's not so much vaguely nerve stimulated, and I couldn't tell exactly how it works, but the research seems to say that we've got brown adipose tissue, as you know. I know that you know that. In the adult, we've got a lot less than we had when we were a baby. When we were a baby, brown adipose tissue, we have a lot because we're relying on adults to regulate our temperature for us. So we're relying on other people to put more clothes on us or keep us warmer. And babies have a larger surface area to volume ratio, so they can lose heat much more quickly than an adult can. So in an adult, we've got some brown adipose tissue around here above our clavicles and either side of our spine at the upper back area. So it's not a lot, but it still does a really important job of thermogenesis, which is heat creation. Okay. And one of the things the pHix product does, which I've read in the paperwork, is that it stimulates an increase in the number of mitochondria in the brown adipose tissue, and it also stimulates an increase in the amount of UCP1, which is uncoupling protein 1, which is the chemical in the mitochondria specifically responsible for generating heat from fat, from the fuel fat, okay? So when we've got more of that, we've got more heat generated rather than more ATP production, which is the molecule that is responsible for movement and all those things. So where the brown adipose tissue needs to get the fat from, because we don't have much, is it draws the raw material from the white adipose tissue in the rest of the body. So it will draw it from the visceral fat, which is an in and around, it's around our organs. We've also got some on our heart muscle, or like on the outside of the heart,
Yep.
where the blood vessels are. You tend to see a buildup of fat there. So it will dissolve some of that fat away, and the deep subcutaneous fat. So it's good for us to have some superficial fat, but not a lot. The deep
Yep.
stuff we want to get rid of, and that's where the brown adipose tissue gets its raw material from. I don't know how that part works, but I'm sure over time I'll learn more about it.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, so pretty exciting stuff overall. One of the top docs that we were talking to in Australia, she said that as she looked at pHix, she said this is a health hack. And to me, that's a great, at least image for people to understand, because it does some things in the body to start the journey to health. And that's, I mean, to your point, the outer body, how it looks is one thing, but what's going on inside is far more important from a health standpoint. And so I appreciate your insight on all of this, Lynn, and sharing with folks what you've, and this comes from your research and your background as a doctor. And I look forward to as more of this becomes available, and like those killer T cells. That's an interesting conversation about that, and because we hadn't, I think maybe one of the doctors has mentioned that, but not to the degree that you just did. So anyway, exciting stuff. Thanks so much for being with us for a few minutes and sharing your knowledge and your enthusiasm with everybody.
I'll do it again if you want me to come back and speak again about it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, just know that that's probably going to happen. All
Thanks a lot.
right, thanks.